Here. All right. I believe we're working, guys. Kyle and Dan, can you all hear us?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
sir, and I can see it's on YouTube.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you very much. If you could let me know in the comments here, make sure that we're working also with audio feed on YouTube and also Facebook this evening. We're integrating both of them to deliver multiple platforms to be able to get our show out, and we'll see what happens with it. First off, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and also getting on Facebook and sharing and liking our episodes and going from there. So this evening, Tony Tolbert's a little bit under the weather, so he asked for a pass. So we give him a courtesy pass. So it'll just be us three tonight. As always, to our center, we have Kyle Robinson. He's our head of Making Stuff Work director. And tonight, our special guest is Mr. Dan Gitro out of North Carolina. And we'll have a show dedicated to things that he has done and what he's ran into and so on and so forth. Dan, how you doing tonight?
Not bad, John. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, sir. Appreciate you coming on board with somewhat short notice.
No problem.
So as we all know, you all took I guess we could say a generational storm that came up from Florida, moved up the east side of the mountains, and pretty much caused catastrophic damage with Hurricane Helene.
That is correct. Absolutely destroyed the western half of the state.
Right, and you seem to have played a major role in being able to provide communications with amateur radio and being able to provide when nothing else was available.
Yeah, I mean, what started is just getting on the repeater one night or one morning, that Saturday morning, I think it was, asking if anybody needed anything. It turned into 11 straight days of emergency help for people stranded in the mountains.
With one, I guess, somewhat high profile repeater there in the area.
Yeah, it's the Mount Mitchell repeater. It sits at a little over 6,500 feet, something like that, 6,600 feet. And it's backed up by thousands of gallons of diesel at a generator site.
Gotcha. So does your area have a high influx of amateur radio operators that was able to provide that, or was people brought in and it was sort of, uh, was people brought in and given radios and be like, you know what, screw it, it's an emergency in a disaster area. This is our only way to communicate. I mean, or is there a large influx of amateur radio operators there?
Well, what we found was there was a lot of influx of radios, maybe not so much amateur radio operators. There was a few, I don't want to say a lot, but there were a few non-licensed people that came onto the repeater, and I took the stance of stating I don't care right now if you're licensed or not to talk. We're under what I considered true emergency conditions, and the FCC rules allowed that. We had no sort of communication, no power, water, nothing. People were out of everything.
How is that area doing today?
It's still in, you might go to Asheville and you'll see, the famous McDonald's rebuilt next to the Biltmore House, and that area rebuilt. Buncombe County, where Asheville is doing very well. That's where the money is. It's a high profile area, but we still have counties that we work in with my other organization that I work with that are still struggling. And we'll talk about that here in a little while.
I got you. So you got on your radio, and next thing you know, you led an army of communications to be able to coordinate different kinds of activities. What all activities did you all coordinate?
Oh, I mean, in the very beginning days, Saturday and Sunday after the storm, it was all helicopter rescue. We had people stuck, thousands of feet on top of a mountain with no way to get down. So we were in contact with multiple fire departments, the Fairview Fire Department, Swannanoa Fire Department, the Buncombe County EOC. It just really built to something we didn't ever expect. It went from, hey, can I help you make a phone call, to coordinating resources and rescues of people and bringing in supplies, not only with private helicopters, but with the National Guard. National Guard was actually on the Mount Mitchell repeater. And if you go back and listen to any of the recordings of that, it's kind of funny because we all communicate for fun, and on amateur radio, and when we have to be serious, we are. Um, but the military comes in and they have a way of talking, and that's the way they talk on the radio every time. So trying to learn their lingo with what we just have as regular talk was kind of a challenge there in the beginning.
Yeah, I know you get it. Like I said, like you said, our purpose of getting on the radio is talking about watching grass grow
Yeah,
and how's the weather. But this turned into a very serious, catastrophic event that it will last for ages.
absolutely. And the rebuilding there, we can sit here and say, oh, we hope by 2026, 28, everything will be back to normal. There is going to be no normal in Western North Carolina. What we see right now is the new normal, and that's the way it's going to proceed for the future.
Right, and you look at it, all it takes is one disaster, and you all went through your pretty much living hell.
Yeah, yeah, and those people, I mean, you can look at the video; it's all over YouTube. What these people went through, and it's I don't know how they survived. I'll be honest; it's crazy to think.
Yeah, I know in the past I've seen some videos and stuff by a guy that owns a septic company over there in the Asheville area, and some of the stuff he posted during all that. And it's just, man, it's amazing that there were literally whole roads down the sides of these mountains that were wiped
Oh yeah,
off, leaving these
gone.
people stranded with no way to get through and
Yep.
no way to get around. It's just amazing what the community was able to come together with you guys and do to save these people.
Which kind of wraps us up into what I do now. And John, if you want to go ahead and move over to that subject, if you will, with Operation Hilo, we can talk about that next.
Sure, you can talk about it. I've looked into it, but obviously you're the expert in what you did in your field. So go ahead and tell us what you did with it.
So Operation Hilo started, pretty much at Hurricane Helene. The organization came together as just friends. They were all pilots, and they just started making phone calls. Hey, we need people here. We have people that are trapped. Bring your helicopter. We're going in. We're not waiting for the okay. And that's what it started at, over at the Hickory Airport, the Little Mountain Airport in Catawba County. So it really turned into this huge organization of helicopters of all friends, friends of friends who all flew it. We all heard, one of the most famous ones that flew with us was Greg Biffle, and we all know that him and his family just perished in that plane crash there here in Statesville in Iredell County. So it's really bringing people supplies and rescuing people out of the area. We did over 4,000 helicopter missions in Hurricane Helene. We delivered over 500 Starlinks to people that were brought in, and Ivanka Trump delivered a bunch of Starlinks to us, and we were able to get those to people. 167 landing zones we had established all throughout Western North Carolina. It just 2,000 pounds of supplies that were dropped. It was just amazing the amount of helicopters that we brought in from all over the country. And now all those helicopter pilots have signed up to work for us now. And some of the humanitarian work that Operation Hilo does now is what people, if you've never been to Western North Carolina, there's bridges everywhere. Everybody has their own bridge going into their property because, you got the road and then the water and then the house. And all those bridges were washed away. And just one particular gentleman, Mr. Ted, as we all call him, he's an elderly man, and his bridge was washed away. And Operation Hilo, through all their contacts as an NGO, we were able to get the funding and build him a new bridge. We built new houses and rebuilt houses for people. It's just a good organization. Another thing that we did right after the storm, we brought over 200 campers, all donated campers. I mean, one by one, climbing the mountains, going in and bringing campers to people. And believe it or not, we still have people living in those campers today. So it's just a good organization. We're trying to do a lot of good for people.
And I believe you all just received your FEMA designation
We're,
deployment or
we're
whatever.
yeah, we're a North Carolina deployable asset now, and we got, I think, one more thing to go through for FEMA, or some sort of test we got to do, and then we'll have our official designation through FEMA.
Was that organization, has that been your only, I guess, mission, I guess you could call it?
No, obviously, Hurricane Helene was our first. If that's what you're asking, we were just down in, I shouldn't say just, but we were down in Texas for the flooding at Camp Mystic, that area. We were down there for that, and then we did humanitarian stuff for the flooding up in Alaska this past year. So
Gotcha.
I mean, for what started as just let's help our neighbors with helicopters, it's really grown into this huge organization, and we're starting to build chapters throughout the United States, Arizona, Texas, Nevada, those areas that we're moving into next.
Okay, I know that you all reached out to me and asked if I had some kind of a solution that would be available for, I guess, UHF analog repeater to aircoms, and
Yep.
I got that for you. And and I guess you've used it, and that works fantastic for you, the ICOM unit.
I tell you what, that piece of machinery is fantastic. So what it is, it's a UHF and airband repeater, crossband repeater. So when I bought it from you, I thought, well, we'll be able to disconnect it. We'll be able to use the UHF side if we need to, or just the airband, but it's not. It's a dedicated crossband repeater. There's no way to shut one off without the other. And what it does is it allows us, guys on the ground who are working in the rivers or, on the ground somewhere, we can now talk back to the helicopters. Trying to get everybody an airband radio, a reliable airband radio, is not as easy as just coming up with good commercial grade UHF radios, which we have plenty of. So now, we'll bring our communications trailer, we'll set up a 50-foot antenna, and, our UHF radios can talk back to that antenna, which then goes out to the helicopters or the fixed wing aircraft that we'll be using in these areas. And I was really concerned, I'll be honest with you, about the audio. I mean, we all know what AM audio sounds like versus FM, but ICOM really did their homework with this piece of machinery, and it really, really sounds great.
Yeah,
If
no,
there's one thing ICOM's good at, it's airband equipment. They got some really nice airband radios.
Yeah, I mean, not only do they do great things in the amateur world, which, I started using ICOM, but in the commercial world with airband and in marine radios, they really shine as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, someone over YouTube said that they were able to listen to you over Broadcastify, and your public safety background came out and just started running. And kudos to you for the operation that you did for several days.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's my background. Communications is always, emergency communications has been my background. I worked for some of the largest fire departments on the East Coast of the United States, dispatching for them prior to getting into law enforcement. Then after law enforcement, my business kind of took off. So do that full time now. But, communications is what I enjoy. It's something I've done since I was a kid. We've all have our stories, how we got started,
I got you. Yeah, well, I told you my CB story last week.
Yeah.
Burning up my mother's CB radio. She had a 23 channel
Yep.
Royce, and that was my thing. And then my next radio was a GE 4-watt Marlboro Miles Special. So that was my whole special. So, but seems like someone asked, did we build the repeater for airband UHF communications? And no, that wasn't the case. ICOM makes like a crossband repeater deal with two different mobiles interfaced together and so on. So you have an airband radio on one side and a UHF radio on the other side, or VHF. It's available in both bands, but obviously UHF would work well because of the frequency separation versus VHF, and it pretty much just repeats it. So when the UHF radio receives a transmission, it keys up the airband radio, and then vice versa. Just not much difference than your conventional, like Kenwood TMV 71A radio, or any radio that does crossband repeating. It gets a signal, it broadcasts it back out and then rinse and repeat the same method.
Yep, sure does. And I tell you, we searched for something like this for a while. And my buddy, my other communications partner in Operation Hilo, his name's Preston. he just was looking one night and found it. I go, man, that looks fake to me, and I said, well, I know one guy that'll know. So I contacted Ray Novak, and he's like, yep, that's an actual product. And I said, well, there's only one guy I want to order it from then. And I contacted you, John.
As always, I appreciate it, and glad to have helped and so on. We don't do a lot of helicopter radio communications business. I do have a contract with Air Methods here in Kentucky to provide helicopter information. And what I didn't know, and Kyle, you can back me on this, but I think there's some kind of a limitation that they're only limited to maybe 5 watts or so, or something like that.
Not only that, technically under the FAA's rules, if a radio's in a helicopter, we're not allowed to program it. The mechanic has to.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is crazy because it's just a radio, but they can read the radio, give me the laptop, I can make the changes, and then they can hit the right button back.
Right.
Which is
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't want to be the one responsible for that anyway. So I'm happy to let the mechanic. I'm happy to assist, but I don't want to be the one that causes an issue. But even so, I provide a repeater to Air Methods that's on a tower at about 240 feet. And it's amazing how when they get up in the air and they're up 2,000-3,000 feet, they can talk 70, 80 miles away. But here locally, once they are landing or they're on the ground, they can't get out worth a thing. They're done.
And it's mostly because the antenna's on the bottom of the helicopter pointing upside down.
Yeah.
So somebody over on YouTube said that they now understand Operations Helo mission and why cross-banding makes more sense than putting LMR into every helicopter when there's disasters going on. They said you did a great job explaining that.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it. Yep. It's the other thing we're working on, and this was kind of Preston's idea. Preston, my other communications guy, he's a former pilot, corporate pilot. That's what he did for his career. And, he said to me, he goes, Dan, what do you think about putting a repeater in a fixed wing, a single engine or a 2-engine airplane? And, we'll just test it out, see how it works, and we could use that. And I said, Preston, you out of your mind? I mean, to me, trying to get a plane up in the air, imagine the cost involved in this. But, he's a pilot. He knows all these people, and he knows people that are, attempting to get their solos and, all this stuff that I don't know. I'm not a pilot. I don't pretend to be, but all this stuff that needs to be done. He's like, Dan, it's $50 an hour. We can throw a plane in the air, put a repeater on it with an antenna, and put it at 5,000 feet. We'd probably have 100-mile radius coverage. So as crazy as it sounds, it might work. So we're going to be testing that out here in the very near future. And we're hoping to be able to get from like the Asheville area to Winston-Salem, Greensboro. We're going to go at 5,000 feet, and then we're going to go to 10,000 feet. And we want people spread out all over North Carolina with just handhelds or mobiles. And let's see how far we can talk. Because one thing that anybody will tell you during Hurricane Helene, the biggest issue was communication. We have the North Carolina Viper system here in North Carolina. It's a statewide P25 phase 1, phase 2 system. It's being upgraded to phase 2 right now. But it was almost at points worthless, because not to mention we had a bunch of towers that were knocked down. I think 8 or 9 total that were knocked out of commission. Then they started running out of diesel generator backup. So they were trying to feed the generators of the repeaters that went down, of the towers that went down. And then it's just very, very rough terrain. Viper's a great system, but in the mountains, it's just not a great system. It's better than what it was years ago, but if you're trekking through the mountains on foot, it's just not great handheld coverage. So we're hoping that if something like this ever happens again, we'll be able to have a plane in the air, we'll have repeater in the air, and we'll be able to communicate, one side of the mountain to the other.
And Viper is all 7-800, correct?
Correct.
Do they have any other band sites that are VHF or
none?
See, and that's one thing that's got me with Motorola. They've convinced a lot of these public safety agencies that everything needs to go 7-800. And that doesn't always work. A lot of that mountain stuff could be solved if they had a few VHF sites, like
100% correct.
Eastern Tennessee, man. They got 4 or 5 VHF sites, and they just have to have them to talk.
Yeah.
You know,
So
and
it's
that's
kind of
why.
funny. One thing that we found out, like the state found out during the hurricane, was they've invested all this money into 700 and 800 megahertz on Viper. I mean, they got this beautiful communications 53-foot trailer that they pull around. Highway Patrol pulls it. It's filled with 7 and 800. And what one of the head guys of EM said was, wow, we really need some VHF stuff. So now they're investing money in VHF and UHF again, which is something we haven't seen here in years. They've put all their money into one basket, and they realized real fast in an emergency that one basket gets overfilled real fast.
I'm afraid that's the same thing that might be happening here in our state. The state has never had a statewide trunking system.
Yep.
Each agency has always had their own statewide stuff. State police has been on a vote scan UHF P25 system. And I fear that's what's happening with this new 7-800 state system, is especially in the eastern part of the state, they're having to build all these extra sites and stuff, and they're just going to realize they don't have the coverage they need when something actually happens.
Yeah.
Now, supposedly the state is leaving all the current VHF and UHF infrastructure up, but we know how that goes. Once you start investing in this new, you quit messing with the old. So if something happens to it, it dies.
Yep, you got it. We just had a potential for a real bad ice storm here. And I was talking to the sheriff here in the county one night, who I'm, personal friends with. I said, man, I just hope Viper don't go down, because this whole county is Viper. We have 1 or 2 UHF, VHF repeaters now left in the county that, are old. They don't get tested a lot. So they were out testing them the day before the ice storm hit. It's like, this is stuff that we should be using, we should be practicing with, because I'll tell you right now, if you tell a newer deputy to go to the old UHF channel, he's not going to know where to go in the radio to get it, and all the fire trucks all the VHF radios have been removed from the fire trucks, and the county is buying all single band APX 6000s for the fire departments. So if we have to use the backup VHF repeater, we can't, because nobody has radios for it now. So, as a comm guy, I'm always looking, okay, we have our primary. How do we back up to that now? We can't here in this county. There is no backup anymore. It's gone.
That's problematic. So how has the weather went over there on, where you're at? Winter storm? How's things there?
So the storm that we just got this weekend, we've had 2 weekends back to back of storms. Last week was the ice storm. They were calling up to a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 of an inch. I think we got a 1/10. So I'm glad the meteorologists were wrong, because as we know, ice is devastating. So I'm glad that was wrong, but they were not wrong about this. Actually, they were wrong. They called for 4 to 8, and I think we got 11 or 12 inches of snow. It broke the record for the snow for a single day of snowfall. The record went back to like 1880 something, and we broke it, I heard.
Gotcha. So in other words, in regards back to the airplane, you're telling us that we can expect to see a DB-224 mounted hanging from
downward
with some 7/8 inch hardline coax to a flat pack.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be that, but maybe a quarter wave somewhere.
So Dan, somebody asked if you're part of Aries. Do you want to answer that?
So
Or do you just want to leave that alone?
Going to be careful how I choose my words here. Okay. I was part Aries. I'm not part Aries no more. After the hurricane, we saw a big push for Aries. We saw a big push for Oxcom. All these, so-called emergency service type for amateur radio. Even our county got in on it. The county manager and I talked like, "Oh, Dan, we're going to support you guys. We need all this." Well, here we are a year and a half later. And as the ice storm was barreling into Iredell County last week, the day the ice storm was coming, they were putting antennas and coaxes on the EOC in case something happened. This isn't the time to be doing that. In 2024, the end of 2024, there was some money left over in one of the budgets. I think it was an EM budget. and it was like $7,000 left. So they bought a couple ICOM radios, power supplies, maybe an antenna or two. And until the ice storm hit last week, that all sat in a box in a closet, never was touched. So
That's typically how it goes.
guy, I got to be careful how I choose my words, because I know some of the people watching, but it's one of those things. You either prepare for it ahead of time or don't prepare at the end, because it's not going to work. Number one, you're not going to know how to use it. If something goes bad, we have no time to try to fix it. So if you're going to be a flyby, seat of your pants type organization like that, then I don't want nothing to do it. And it's funny, I don't blame Aries. I don't blame Oxcom and however all that organization works. I blame the leaders, because we're here. We're wanting to help. We're wanting to do this, but yet our hands get tied.
Yeah, I know that we've been to some of the hospitals here, and there's a closet that has a Jetstream antenna and about 50 foot of LMR 400 coax, and maybe a ham radio in a box,
And a
stuff.
TNC. And I'll tell you what's really funny is my buddy at the hospital here locally to us calls me the other day, he sends me a picture of it and goes, "What's this?" And he's the head of safety at the hospital. He's been there for 20 years. He had no clue what it was. He's like, "I've never seen it, didn't even know we had it."
But it's funny, I've been told, and I haven't seen it myself, but I've been told we have a couple amateur radios at the hospitals here. I guarantee if we go check where these are today, I bet you they're not hooked up. The coax is probably disconnected. Who knows? I've never seen them. So, and they haven't been checked in a while. So I'll be curious to see just what's left of that particular system. Because we do have a UHF system called HERES here in North Carolina, and there's repeaters. It's a 100% linked system. I don't know. There's probably 30 repeaters throughout the state, and they were all supposed to have amateur radio. It was a backup for ambulances, but I can tell you, there's not a single ambulance with an amateur radio. So I'm not sure how that system's supposed to work.
Gotcha. Yeah, somebody, let's see here, where was it? See that the FCC has been asked to explore giving hams the VHF low band frequencies to use. I mean, why not?
I don't
We already
think-
have 10 meters. What else do we need?
I don't think that was amateur. I think that's GMRS. The proposal's been made to allow 46 and 47 megahertz to be used by GMRS. That was I don't know why they want it. I mean, who wants to drive around with a 70-inch antenna on their car? But I mean, it's great it's great for mountain communication, I guess.
John loves his tall antennas. So does his garage door.
Yeah, that happened. That happened. We got knocked out to a medical call, and I had a 5/8 wave antenna on my truck, and it somehow the little ball got called up into the door of the garage door. And here I go, just backing on out to make this medical call. And next thing you know, it's not a good sound when the 3/4 inch NMO permanent mount is being ripped out and the coax is broke. Oh yeah, and then the whip is completely bent at the very top.
Yep.
So
the woes of being a radio guy. It's I had to go down to a courthouse last week, and same thing. I'm up on top of my truck before I pull in, unscrewing antennas. So
yeah. That's why, on UHF, it's pretty good, 6-inch whip, and it works fantastic. But you get you get into the VHF and the larger and even CB with the 102-inch steel whip with 14 tennis balls on it. Good
it's
stuff.
funny. That's real popular here with the kids. They'll get these pickup trucks and squat them. And then they put this big CB antenna in the back of the
Carolina squat. They put a tennis ball on it.
Yeah, and whenever I see them, I go like this. I look in the windows because the windows are always tinted, thinking I want to see a CB radio. That thing's not hooked up to nothing. It's just like a status symbol here for something, apparently.
And to answer my sister in the comments, it was not a 70-inch antenna. It was a 5/8 wave VHF 2-meter antenna, because that's how I started ham radio. Is when I was in high school. I had a 5/8 wave antenna and a Yaesu 2900 in my little S10.
Gotcha. Yep. We all start somewhere. I had a little Chevy Impala, man. Antennas all over the place.
Yep. I had a Monte Carlo. I had a Chevy Monte Carlo and put an antenna on the trunk with a lip mount. I was too afraid to drill a hole.
Yeah, we look back at what we drove and what we looked like going down the road, and we're like, man, I'd never do that again.
We still look like dorks, even with. So, yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah. So some of the comments over here on YouTube, they're talking about, somebody said essentially no one in commercial or public safety market uses low band anymore. There's got to be a large amount of unused frequencies, and I don't believe that's true. Maybe here in this part of the U.S., but man, out west, California, ask California Highway Patrol how much they love their low band. And there are times when tropospheric ducting is right. I can hear them over here.
Oh yeah, same here. Yep.
It's it's not nearly as mainstream as it is. I know about 3 or 4 towing businesses around our area that use them, but it still exists. I mean, I don't want anybody to think that low band doesn't exist and isn't being used anymore, but it is. It's out there, just not as popular as it once was.
You go up in the Northeast, it's still popular. Massachusetts State Police still use a low band system, not for their primary. They pretty much use it for talk around now. But you get out on the island, there's still a lot of low band, and up through the Catskills, they're still using low band. All backups now and patches, but it's still there because in the mountains it just works.
Well, and with Kenwood's new NX 5600 mobiles, you can do next edge on low band, so you can get the digital voice quality on low band.
Yep. Low band is a great system, and I'll be honest, I really miss it. It has a sound that you just can't replicate on VHF high, UHF 7800. It just has a great sound, and that's as an old school comms guy, I'm getting to that age now where I can say that. Low band was really awesome, and I truly miss it. And I think you're going to see people start going back to it, not primarily for primary communications, but backup. I think we're getting into a period in communications in this country where we've invested hundreds of billions of dollars into these P25 phase 1, phase 2 systems, and just how how fast they can go down in an emergency. And what doesn't go down? Simplex communications.
That's right. I had a county road department that utilized low band until the last 6 months or so, and they had trouble talking across the county, but they could hear an agency in Kansas or stuff like that. So they unfortunately they dropped their low band and took the radios out. Good thing for me is that they went to my business system that I have a repeater on down there, and so that they don't need to talk to Kansas. They need to talk from the north end of the county to the south end of the county, and
Yep.
Luckily that I was able to provide a solution for that.
And that's what we're looking to do here with Operation Hilo. We have a mountain that we want to go on. There's already towers there. There's already a combiner there, but man, it's just like pulling teeth to get any sort of communication out of that company. So we're hoping.
Most large tower owners are horrible to deal with. There's the big two in the the big three in the United States are Crown Castle, SBA, and American, and they all have this nightmarish process for getting on their towers, and they switch reps so often that you'll be in the middle of talking to one, and then you'll call them the next day. Oh, they don't work here anymore, and you got to basically start the whole process over again.
Yep, well, that's for sure.
Yeah, I had someone chime in and say that, Dan, you would probably be a great leader for ARES. Just, I forgot my reflective jacket or my reflective vest.
Don't forget your mesh hat with your call sign on it, man.
That's right.
Don't worry. I'll share the photo in the comments, John. I'll share your photo in the comments.
Yeah. Or the scrolling ham radio call sign badge that you can get at Hamfest now.
Yeah.
So
people actually buy that stuff. It just makes me laugh.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It is. I mean,
everybody has their own thing.
Yep.
Last time I went to Dayton,
I've
I
never been
bought,
that flashy, I guess.
I went to Dayton and I bought a Slinky or a signal stick
And
antenna.
Oh, there
It's
you go.
hard to
Yeah.
see, but that thing works really well on VHF. Screw that onto my VP8000 or my whatever, and I look like a total dork with it, but it makes a
Hey, they work.
significant difference.
The guy I went to Orlando Hamcation with last year, he bought 2 or 3 of them. He bought a couple BK radios out in the flea market, and he bought those to use them with the BK radios.
That's right. I mean, I don't usually pack it, but I mean, I have it here on the desk. So when I need that extra range of comms, why not stick it on there and there you
Yep.
go.
Yep.
So do we have anything else we want to talk about with your organization or what you did and all that stuff before we move on?
No, I think I'm pretty good. I got everything out that I wanted to talk about. Just working with Operation Hilo here, man. These are really good people, and they're out there doing a lot of hard work for very little money. As an NGO, you don't make no money as an NGO. And these folks are doing a lot of what I call God's work up in the mountains, helping people that need it. So I'm just proud to be part of such an organization.
Sounds good, and we look forward to be able to see what future missions. Because in the end, it's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when. It'll
Yep.
Something devastating will happen again, and I'm sure you'll be there as soon as the call is made to be able to deploy and be able to designate your resources and go from there.
Yep, I agree. I look forward to being able to help it any way I can.
Yep. So another thing that you're into is being able to provide, and you've actually made a career out of it. A little bit of a background that I know of you is that you got into law enforcement for a little while, and I don't know how long you was in law enforcement, but I remember following and seeing you were going through the process and got all that taken care of, got into it. And then your other business of keeping the public informed with information through Facebook and social media has blossomed into something big in that area. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah. So, anybody that's watching, I run a page on Facebook called Iredell Firewire. Did it for free for years and got sick of it. I did it as, when I was a law enforcement officer, as a fireman, I did it all. And when I was working, I couldn't really do it. It's kind of a conflict of interest, but the business kept growing. And what started as something I did for free and got sick of, my wife said to me, Dan, why don't you start doing this and try to make a few bucks? So I did. I reached a plateau with Facebook that they allowed me to turn on subscriptions. And I said, well, before I shut it down, if I can make enough money to cover my Harley payment, I'll be happy. And that's the way I looked at it. I didn't want anything more. Well, as it grew and grew and grew, and more people started coming on, they wanted that information. So it got to the point where I didn't think it was good to be part of, other organizations anymore. I needed to move on to what was starting to pay me a decent amount to be able to provide the public what they wanted, and they wanted that information. So it was essentially, I post fire calls, structure fires, traffic accidents, weather. If there's a high profile law enforcement incident, shooting going on, or a barricaded suspect, whatever, we'll put that out for our subscribers. And, there's 2 sides of the page. I have the subscriber side and I have the free side. The free side, you get news, you get weather, you get editorials that I might write. If you want incidents, calls, structure fires, car accidents, whatever the case may be, that's a $2.99 a month charge. When I started this, I said, what can people afford? I don't want to ask too much, and I don't want to ask too little, because I wanted to pay my Harley, remember? And so I came up with $2.99, and it's been there ever since I started, and I haven't changed it. I tried once to change it, but I quickly moved it back. I didn't think it was worth, whatever I asked, extra $1 or $2. But anyways, it grew. We just this past week hit 100,000 followers, so we're over 100,000 followers now. I just couldn't be happier. I'm able to run this full time now. For being away as much as I was, seeing my kids all the time now, can't beat that. At the house. So it's really turned into something great for me. That's for sure.
So, do you have employees now, or are you pretty much living on Red Bulls and stuff, posting updates at 4 o'clock in the morning while, you know,
Yeah, man, I sleep with that radio on 24/7. Go to bed with it on, wake up with it on. It doesn't shut off. I actually use two radios. My Harris XL 200 I use from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. It's just a workhorse. And then at night I use an XG 75, just to give the XL 200 a break.
Wow, so you're doing that all on your own.
Yeah,
Every
between
every update yours.
It's mine. Yep. The only person that does help me when I'm not available is my wife. Like right now, she's listening right now in case something's going on. Being here, I can't post it right now.
Right. I've sort of did the same kind of ordeal, and I don't have anywhere near the following that you developed. But also, you're in a much more urbanized area with a whole lot more people. But
Yep.
one thing that I have found, and you've kind of guided me, is with my page, which is called Breckenridge County Paging. I use a program that captures the tones and then sends it out over makes an automated post, kind of using a couple of little automation programs that I pay for on a yearly thing, and it posts it to Facebook page. Now, I don't allow people to post pictures of incidents or anything like that, because the last thing that I want to be involved in is a family that witnesses that their son has been killed in a car wreck, and stuff like that. So I don't allow. But what I have found is especially with the winter storm that we had, that we're still dealing with. I mean, schools are closed tomorrow here in the county, and the state roads are in pretty good shape, but the county roads still need quite a bit of work. And unfortunately, we have more what seems to be county roads where kids live on county roads more than they do the state roads. So it takes a very long time for us to be able to get our schools back in session because of, the county very rural roads. And, we don't
Yep.
have very much equipment. And I think our state highway department has maybe 5 or 6 trucks. And then our county road department has a few graders and some salt trucks and stuff. But I decided to go with the approach of bringing our emergency manager on board. I did a couple of live videos on Facebook where I provided a 30-minute update with the emergency management director here in the county, and posted, closings. The next thing you know, I'm getting emails and text messages from people that says, "Hey, do you mind to post on your page that business X will be closed for tomorrow?" and stuff like that. And then, looking back into my history, now obviously I'm kind of like you. If I make a couple $100 to begin with a month for my efforts, then it'll make a payment or a nice dinner out somewhere, or or maybe a plane ticket to go to a show or something like that. And within the last 30 days, I mean, I know my numbers are rookie to yours, but I hit almost 2 million views on my page. And
That's all.
and so it's obviously, as it slows down and stuff like that, I'm not as really active, but they have came to realize that if there's a significant event that happens, either with weather, live streaming coverage, and I've put up tower cams and stuff across the county here, that page is going to be available. And if something significant happens, a hazmat incident or something like that results in postings needing to be made, then, but I went with the automated process. I don't listen 24/7. If there's a run that goes out, if it's toned on our county fire channel, then it gets posted. And,
Yep.
but, as availability goes, if I'm able to post an update, I will, but, people seem to be happy with that. I haven't explored the subscription model, yet. I've considered it, just not sure how far I want to take it.
Yeah, and it's hard to ask for money. I mean, especially when you've done something so long for
It
free. I
is,
mean,
yeah.
up
That's
until
kind
that
of where
point,
I'm
I
at.
think I'd run the page for 7 years for free. So, I mean, I got 100,000 followers, but I don't have 100,000 people paying.
Right,
You
right.
know, I think some people think like I'm a multimillionaire or something, and it's far from it. Do I live an okay lifestyle for the way my wife and I and the kids want to live? Sure. Do I have some nice things? Sure, but I'm not making $1 million. I'm not making a couple $100,000.
Right.
Everybody takes their fees. of my little over, 4,000 subscribers, Google takes their fee, Apple takes their fee, Facebook takes their fee. So, it's not like
And,
I'm making
and then
a
you get
huge
that 10 and then you get that 1099 that
yeah,
comes
yeah,
in, and yeah, I think mine actually came across.
Government takes their fee.
Yeah. So the government takes their fee, and everybody and their brother takes their fee, and Google, and then Apple, if they sign up using the subscription, Apple takes their fee, and stuff like that. So it definitely gets ate up. But you know what? If you're happy doing it, and you get to be able to stay at home
yep.
and whatnot, why not? If
My
it's a,
my life has always been in communications or law enforcement, the fire department. I drove truck for a while, so I've always been away from the home. Never. I mean, I remember leaving on Sundays, and my 18-year-old back then, 6, 8, 10 months, 12 months, whatever it was, just screaming that I was leaving, and that was an every week thing, and I'd be gone for days on end doing a job somewhere. It's nice to be home. He's getting ready to go in the military now, so it's kind of cool to be home with the kids. It's something I've never had. So I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity that literally the residents of Iredell County have provided me to be able to do. So, all my thanks goes to the county residents.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's sort of the concept that, like I said, I'm not making anywhere, petty cash, I guess you could call it for that. But just to know that, last 30 days, 1.8 million views on the page, and, and seeing 70, 80, 100 people join in on the live stream to be able to get information, it's somewhat of a satisfying thing for me. And like I said, it is possible that I may look at the subscription issue or subscription thing in the future, but at this point, I kind of let the automation process take care of it, and then if severe weather comes in or a significant event happens and I'm able to cover it, if I can, great.
Yep.
But if I can't, if I'm out of the area, we've got in a couple of weeks Orlando Ham Fest coming up that we'll hopefully all be able to attend, and I know myself and Kyle are attending, and you're in the process of working out details to be able to head down there yourself.
Yep. Looking forward to it. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to go and, had the conversation with Operation Hilo. We're hoping to be able to. I'm hoping they're going to be able to send me down there because we're looking for a few things, and it'll be a great place to buy those things there. So
it is absolutely a great show for a ham fest. It's hope and I think Orlando actually has had some cold weather within the last couple of weeks. So hopefully it will warm up. I'm used
better
to
warm up.
hopefully used to 75 and sunny down there. So like I said, myself and Kyle will be down there in a couple of weeks for a few nights, and then we'll fly home, and then and then we got IWCE showing up. Have you ever been to that?
I haven't, and I'm trying to get Op Hilo to get me to Orlando. I'm not sure they're going to send me to Vegas for that, but I tell you, I'm really hoping they do.
Firewire will send you to Vegas.
Yeah, well, we can. We'll see.
Just for
You just gotta your wife.
It'll just be that'd be a great show to go to. I'd really, really like to go. I mean, that's where all the vendors are, and to be able to rub shoulders with them would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've been the last how many we've been to IWCE like the last 3 or 4 years, and it does, and just like any kind of show, I guess you could say they've, one year they'll see a downtick, and then the next year it'll be somewhat a little bit more, and then the next year it'll be down and stuff. But it's nice to be able to mingle with vendors and be able to talk to them and shake hands and get to know them and they they support you. I mean, by offering their product and be able to answer questions or ask questions and get questions answered and stuff. So between Orlando Ham Fest and IWCE, and then we go to APCO every year, the APCO conference.
Where's APCO held? I've never been to that one either.
So
Baltimore.
APCO is sort of like IWCE, where there's quite a few vendors, but it's sort of geared towards the end user. So when our first time was at Baltimore last year, and they have like dispatch consoles, and so does IWCE, but they had dispatch furniture and stuff. But still, you still see a lot of the major vendors there. This year, it's in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
When is it this year? Do you know?
I don't know. It's I know it's later on in maybe August, something like that. I don't remember the dates, but it's in San Antonio, Texas, and then or IWC is in Vegas this year. They usually move it to Orlando, but I really have no desire to go to IWC in Orlando. We like going to Vegas a little lot better.
Yeah. Vegas is fun.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, somebody else said it's usually in August and September. So,
Okay.
so
Be in San Antonio once, maybe twice already this year, so maybe we'll get down there again.
Gotcha. Kyle, do you have anything to add to our conversations or anything?
No, I've just been sitting here reading the comments on YouTube, and they're talking about the people that get out there and get in the way because they hear the scanner stuff and they want to go see it live. And somebody said that's the future of encryption and push to talk over cellular. Encryption, they might be right, but man, there's a lot of places that are pushing for transparency. What we've seen in some of the areas around here, especially the big metro city of Louisville, is while they encrypted their radio traffic channels, they still host a scanner feed. It's just delayed by 15 minutes.
Yeah. We just built in this county here, we use Viper, but Viper is a multicast system. We've upgraded the system here in Iredell County to a simulcast system. Now they've incorporated maybe somewhere around 40 new talk groups. And of those 40 some talk groups, there might be 10 that are encrypted. I mean, I've been in business here 10 years. They're not trying to hide their comms from me. And they know I have the connections to find out what's being said on those anyways. So if I ever had to make those calls, I could, but we have the encrypted channels here now, and we do use encrypted for certain calls, barricaded subjects, searches, stuff that's high profile, but I just got to call a certain person and I'll get that info.
Yeah, it's like
right.
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
But my point also is that they brought up push talk over cellular. That's never going to be mainstream. It keeps failing over and over again. FirstNet, while they touted as this great thing, we've seen continual failures of FirstNet, especially, well, you can vouch for this in Helene when towers got knocked down. It didn't work at all.
Yep.
The priority is only as good as the device that broadcasts the signal to you.
It's funny because during Helene, I met up with an AT&T rep, and I said to him, because he had a wired drone up in the air providing cell service. I go, "Are you giving priority to FirstNet?" And he's like, "Oh no, we I don't even know if FirstNet's here yet." Like, kind of thought they would be maybe the first ones here, but apparently not.
FirstNet is its own thing.
I mean, I know they were there, but
the government to build the FirstNet network, and that's about as far as FirstNet has went because they're not really making as much money on FirstNet as they are on regular consumers. Because the government has rules about what they're allowed to charge people for FirstNet. They can't grossly overcharge you like they can on regular commercial-based service.
Yeah. I mean, I've been very happy with FirstNet. I've had them for a few years now, and they do real well for us. But
yeah, I tried to get on the FirstNet bandwagon, but I just live in absolute BFE nowhere. That even with FirstNet, there's just no signal where I'm at. I rely on one cell phone tower that I can see from my residence that's on the county line, and it's Verizon, and we've got full service, and they finally upgraded it to ultra wide, so I can get 500-600 meg down speeds and stuff. So unfortunately, FirstNet just doesn't work very well in my particular area, but I know that there's quite a few people that use it, but I've been happy with the Verizon service that I've got.
I'll tell you, the first time I went to Vegas, that's the first time that's back when I was on Verizon. And that was the very first tower I ever hit that was ultra wideband. And I was actually kind of excited. I remember crossing over the bridge, going to Circus, doing, just walking. And I did the speed test, and it was like 700-800 megabytes. And I said, "Holy cow, look at this!" Now that's kind of standard, but years ago it wasn't.
Yeah,
that's funny you mentioned that because I had a thing pop up on my Facebook the other day that was a memory from like 2010, 2011 when I was going to St. Louis. And when I got into St. Louis, instead of having 3G, I had LTE. And I posted a screenshot of me doing 25 meg down on it. And I thought that was hot stuff at the time.
Well, I've
had a lot of people. Go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've had Verizon for many years, and we used to have a regional carrier here called Bluegrass Cellular. And so if you was a Verizon user in Bluegrass area, they throttled you to 5 meg down. And so when Bluegrass finally kicked the bucket and was bought out by Verizon, and then they finally, the day that this transition took over, I went from 5 meg down that we was originally being throttled on to 100, and we're like, oh crap, that's significant. And
Yep.
now, like I said, I can look at my phone now, and I'm ultra wideband and do a speed test and get 500, 600, 700 meg down easily, here in the middle of nowhere.
Yep. A lot of people don't know this. I used to work for Verizon right out of high school. In high school, I worked for Radio Shack. And because of that, I got hired by Verizon right out of high school. So at 18 years old, I thought I was king, making 50 grand a year out of high school. But the very first phone that Verizon sold with internet access was a Kyocera 3035. You could look it up. It was a strange looking thing, but they didn't even call it internet back then. They called it BREW, BREW. And I don't remember what it stood for, but that was the very first internet available on a cell phone in the United States, for Verizon, that is. I don't know about anybody else. But I remember getting on a plane and going to Louisville, Kentucky for something for Verizon. And when I got there, it worked. We had the phone in New York where I lived, but it didn't work yet because we weren't a top market. And I got off that plane and that thing said 1X on it. And I said, oh man, this is going to be great, But I mean, just a minute, 20 years ago. And now look what we have, it's just amazing, the technology increase.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast technology has advanced in 20 years.
Yep.
We're at a point in time right now where technology is advancing faster than what we can physically use it.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Yep. And it was only going to continue to get, I guess, better. And as we all say, technology is great when it works, but when it fails, it's junk.
It's junk. You got it. It's paperweight.
Yep.
And what do we all rely on?
Technology.
Simplex radio communications.
Well, yeah, until it doesn't work, and then you have to go back to your roots of using Simplex and stuff. So, all right, we're at 57 minutes in, and it's almost 8:30 for our hour podcast for the evening. Next week, we've got a couple of potential guests that are circulating to possibly get on board with us. We'll make an announcement later on this week on who that guest will be for the next week, but it will also be on Sunday. Unfortunately, during basketball season, don't have any games on Sunday for them usually, but Monday is usually busy for me. So for now, we're going to move our podcast over to Sunday night, as it just seems to work out a lot better.
You're really doing well with your roughing, huh?
Man,
taken off on that.
Man, I am so ate up with it. People think I'm crazy by what fun do you have on getting booed at or getting yelled at or getting heckled at and stuff. But I mean, it's been and not to make a big change of discussion here to get off the path, but I got into basketball officiating in the elementary level for 15 years or so. Took my license took a test to get my license in 2011, and then I lost 8 years because I couldn't figure out how to get in. So we had a charity basketball game here at our local high school for a television fundraiser that every year called the Crusade for Children, and a couple of high school officials showed up, and I said, because I was going to be the third guy, and I was not. I wasn't a high school official. I did elementary, fifth and sixth grade ball, and I said, "How do I get in?" And they're like, "Here's a phone number, call." And I'm like, "Is it that simple?" And so I called, and I started with getting JV and middle school games, and as as I got out of dispatching, my weight continued to increase, and I decided I went to a couple of college camps, and they said, we're happy with your calls and your mechanics needs a little bit of work, but if you want to move up in this, I guess, career or profession or whatever it is, you've got to lose your weight. And
hey John, somebody just mentioned. Sorry to cut you off. Next Sunday is the Super Bowl.
Oh, next Sunday is the Super Bowl. Okay. We'll figure something out. We'll make an announcement and see what we need to do. Definitely don't want to lose. Definitely don't want to try to compete with the Super Bowl. I don't see that happening. But
Can we charge their prices for advertisements?
I'll give you a 5-second logo on my page for what, $150,000, something like that. That's a deal.
You can afford it, John.
Yeah. But anyway,
I
back
just
to
want to
the
know how we get in on that.
yeah back to the refereeing thing is that they said we're happy with your calls, but if you want to move up, you got to lose your weight. And I peaked at 245 pounds, and I'm down to 165 now,
Good for you,
and
man.
absolutely being able to feel better and be able to get up and down the court and get those calls to be able to get in the positions has just been life changing, and continue to work at it and get a better schedule, and hopefully with postseason coming up, I'll get involved with that. But yeah, I made up with it just as much as I am with radio, and really enjoying these podcasts, and we're right at an hour. But I wanted to thank you very much for taking the time this evening to to join us on the page and the podcast to tell us about what you're doing, and hopefully we'll see you in Orlando in a couple of weeks.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me, and hope to see you in a few weeks.
All right, sir. Kyle, do you have anything else for us?
Nope, that's it. Thank everybody for being here. Thank you for coming on, Dan. This has been great. Learned a lot about you. Learned things about North Carolina that I didn't know. And yeah, thank you.
Sounds good, Kyle. See you in a few weeks, hopefully.
Yes,
Alrighty.
sir. See you in a few weeks at Orlando.
All right, like I
Alrighty.
said, guys, we don't know when our next podcast will be. I forgot about Super Bowl. Somebody said they would rather watch the podcast than the Super Bowl. Well, you unfortunately would probably be the only one on here, so I would prefer to have some kind of viewership. But we'll make an announcement. We'll put on the post who our next guest will be and the date of that announcement. So with that being said, we'll close out for the evening. Hopefully we answered everyone's questions that was in there and took care of some of the comments that was made. And like I said, we'll make an announcement when our next podcast will be. Until then, everyone have a great night. Take care, and we'll see you guys later on. Bye-bye.